Okay, friends, pop quiz. We have almost 300 episodes of this podcast. Question: if you wanted to find the exact episodes and resources for batch planning, how long would it take you?
Oh my God, too long. And that is exactly why we are building the Brave New Teaching University.
Yes, after much demand, let's just say, we are organizing our entire catalog into departments, and they are systems, inquiry, and literacy. And it is going to be a complete curriculum for your teaching career.
And listen, we actually would love to have a few, if you will, students to test out the campus before we actually open the doors. So
Please, when you have a moment, obviously not right now if you're driving or running, but when you are at your computer, go to bravenewteaching.com/waitlist to join the waitlist and become a founding beta tester. Classes almost in session, friends. We'll see you there.
Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching. I am so excited to talk with you today. It's Amanda, and we are ready for another team meeting. In today's meeting, we're going to talk about bean salad. Yes, the bean salad conversation will be coming back, and we're going to take things another step further based on last week's conversation about really figuring out what this apathy looks like with students in terms of reading and how we're going to have to make some uncomfortable shifts in education moving forward in 2026. I want to go deeper into some of the things that I proposed last week, and we will recap it and we will go in. I think you're going to walk away with a couple of really powerful ideas. And I want today's team meeting to really have that feeling of something that you can bring up to your actual team in your next team meeting. Like, these are the big ideas that, like Marie said a few weeks ago, are going to be what's on our minds this summer as we design for the 2026-2027 school year, right? Like right now in January, February, March, right? We're just envisioning all of the things that we think need to change. We're not expecting ourselves to do it right now. We're kind of in the workshop mode. So today we're going to keep going with all of that. And I'm really excited to do that with you. So let's cue the music. You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a high school teacher from Southern California.
Join us after the show and happy hour to extend your BNT experience with instant access to our resources, workshops, and courses.
Visit shop.bravenewteaching.com/happy hour to join us today. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show.
Okay, so let's start this team meeting with an actual lifesaver. 2 summers ago, Marie and I did a long series about back to school and the things that were our go-to. Absolutely manifest this in your life because it's going to change everything. And I was at Marie's house at the time. It was the first time I ever got to visit her. And while I was there, she convinced me that the answer to the lunchtime, the packing your lunch and eating lunch at school crisis is bean salad. And I thought she was completely crazy, but she was not. And now that I'm back at school, and well, it's been a while, but now that I'm back at school and have listened to my friend, once again, Marie was right. I must confirm, the bean salad is truly an amazing hack for lunches for teachers. If you missed that series, we will link it for you guys in the show notes below. Marie's got all kinds of ideas. The gist, if you've not taken the bean salad, not been on that life, or you missed those episodes, generally speaking, the idea is that we're making things like cowboy caviar. We're making, it's like beans, vegetables, and a dressing, right? And like it kind of marinades and gets more delicious all week long. We make a huge batch on Sunday, portion it out, or bring the whole batch with you to school on Monday morning. And you're just kind of eating it as the week goes on, and it's actually getting better. I eat mine with either whatever leftover chips are in the house. I've also had it with like a protein chip. I've had it with like an Ezekiel toast. I mean, really whatever carbohydrate you want. it's delightful, it's delicious, it's cold. I don't know. I don't really like hot lunch, so maybe that's also just me. But if you haven't jumped on the bean salad situation, you might just be saving yourself a little bit of deep breaths for the weekend. That is a hot take I have for you in this team meeting. I know that's what you're all here for. I am not one to share recipes, but I must say the bean salad situation has been saving me. Okay, so another social media hot take that I saw, right? The bean salad is kind of old school. But one that I saw recently this week was from a TikToker, and I did not write down her name. And I really I saw it and I scrolled, but what she had posted stayed in my mind. And then, of course, I could never go back and find whatever. But she had written, I think it was a reel or it was a carousel, but she had a statement on there that was to the effect of schools that have a hard focus on data, like a spotlight on data, are masking a culture crisis. And again, like I just kind of scrolled, right? I'm trying to just like move on with my life. And I just keep thinking about this statement and how interesting that would be to have in a team meeting, right? This conversation. Is the data that we're all trying to get at, is data masking or covering up or somehow shielding us from the real problems that we're having with our school culture? And I'm relatively, I can't really say that I'm new to the school culture that I'm in. I really hesitate to talk about it openly on the podcast because it's where my kids go to school. So I really want to stay kind of, I don't know. It's not really for the podcast, but I can say that objectively, right? Like not based on this experience, but kind of overall in all of my experiences, this does ring true. And I actually kind of think that that comes from the first school where I worked. We were very focused on culture and not very focused on data. And we had data, like we knew that our kids were struggling. We knew that our students were in the bottom tier of pretty much everything. I mean, they were really struggling in every way possible. We knew that, but like that, we didn't get on the train of monitoring it with a magnifying glass because it was not what was serving our students. Instead, our leadership had us working at every level in every subject on our culture. And it was a lot harder to do that than I think to look at numbers. We did a lot of surveys. We did a lot of meetings and conversations and chats and trial and error. We tried advisory. It didn't work. We got rid of advisory. We retooled a bunch of other things that looked like advisory, but we made it work for our school. And that was amazing. We built student leadership teams. We invited students to most of those conversations. So I really do think that the investment in culture, like authentic investment in culture, yields huge results that, as of course people we know don't even always show up in the data, but eventually they do. It reminds me too about when we first started training and learning about teaching with essential questions, right? Essential questions are very they're not woo-woo, but they're not right hard statistical types of, ELA data. They're not fluency rates. They're not right comprehension, multiple choice numbers. I mean, we're not, that's like bottom of not even on the list, right? That's like off the list. The concept is we're going to focus on these questions and we're going to drive engagement first. And then we're going to see how, right, we can build all that stuff underneath. So that's actually going to be a lot of what we talk about today. But yeah, I want you to think about that. Does your school or do schools, we could talk, kind of big picture, is an obsession or extreme focus on data, is that masking or covering up some real culture issues? And then what do we do about it? How do we address that? So those are your first two kind of, I don't know, they're not super, I mean, the bean salad is light. The other one, maybe not so light, but maybe just the start of another conversation. I want to bring us back to where we left off last week. So this is our third and final section of the team meeting. And this is the gist, right? Like Marie brought up before the break that 2026 was going to require some major shifts in how we think about teaching. And she talked a lot about writing. I'm thinking about reading and unit design. So there's these two pieces of where we might be going wrong when we're trying to engage the students of 2026. Admin especially, right? They're focused on data. And teachers, a lot of us still are focused on books. But those two things at the forefront of our conversation are not going to yield the engagement results that we want. If we want our students engaged, we cannot retrofit into these outdated things, right? If we focus on the data or the book, we neglect the human, right? The student's reality. I think that authentic engagement begins when we identify the urgent conversations that teenagers are already desperate to have. They want to talk about identity, justice, the future, truth. And then once we've identified the conversations that we know our kids want to have and that we know they need to have, right? We make a big list of those. Then we can curate the skills and the texts that will serve as those tools to get to those conversations. That's huge because if we are skill and book first, kids are never going to actually feel like they're tools. They're going to feel like they're things that they have to learn because they've been told to. But if we start conversation first, and then we're using the skill of speaking, we're using the skills of writing, we're using the books that we have on our list, those are helping our students have a conversation. And that's authentic and that's real. So I wanted today to kind of bring up a few of those conversation ideas to spark a list. Ideally, in your team meeting, what I would love for you all to do is to start a running list of the conversations I want to have with students and students want to have with me. Let's keep a long running list of these going. Here are a couple examples, right? I'm going to give you a vibe. I'm going to give you the conversation. And maybe if I have an EQ off the top of my head, I'll throw that at you too. So, okay, here's one example. This vibe is that we are obsessed with filters and brands and this like perfectly put together experience online, right? So I wonder if we want to talk to kids, we need to talk to kids about how much of their online self is real. And if performance ruins experience, right? I would love to ask students to what extent our identity is curated rather than created. That is so interesting to me. And I know kids want to talk about that. So that I would throw on my list. Then I would keep adding ideas to the list. But when we kind of come back to these ideas, I think we look at them and say, all right, so this conversation about filters, brands, real online presence versus not, right? The real lived experiences. Are they online? Are they in person? What are the skills that best suit that particular conversation? Already I'm thinking about argument. I'm definitely thinking about speaking. We're thinking about technology is going to work really beautifully here. And then we start to think about what are the texts, what are the things that kids can be reading. This is a great arena for some nonfiction, right? Looking at articles about this, looking at maybe even memoir would be great for this particular conversation. But remember, we're thinking about the conversation and what's going to serve the conversation, not what books do I want to teach and what skills do I want to teach. And then we just kind of push it in. So that's one idea. Another idea I was thinking about was this idea of truth and AI. We have to talk about this with kids for sure. And I know that they want to. It's happening around them. They are live living this the way that I live lived through AOL and the internet. And we didn't talk about it. We just did it. And for better or for worse, here we are. But, this vibe of like deep fakes, we've got ChatGPT, fake news, what's real, kids trying to figure out if we can't trust what we see or read, how do we know what's true? Does truth even matter if the result is efficient? And I think bizarrely, or I don't know, serendipitously, this conversation is kind of timeless. AI is new, but the trying to discern the truth from a source of power is a conversation that we can have with a lot of books. There are a lot of things we could do with this conversation, which is a really engaging and exciting chat to have with your team. I want to be there for this team meeting. Okay, here's another one on my list that I'm like, I'm dying to have this conversation. This idea, the vibe I'm thinking about is inheritance, right? Climate anxiety, political polarization, generational trauma, and thinking about, if we're doomed to repeat the mistakes of our parents, our society, can we break the cycle? What does it take to break the cycle? Who's responsible for breaking the cycle? What happens if the cycle doesn't get broken? To what extent we're bound by the past? Oh my word. How many amazing, I can just hear even my most reluctant students, I can hear them chiming in on so many levels about this conversation. So put that on your list, and then we will retrofit the skills and the books that we could use to have that chat. And I mean, the same with this one we've talked about before, but I think the monsters conversation is still so huge, right? About what makes monsters, and are they born or made? We've got, even in pop culture, we've got redemption arcs, we've got villain origin stories that are so popular right now. The idea of cancel culture, the responsibilities of a political or a national leader, and monstrosity and blame. And I think that there's just so much text around this that this unit is a must do, a conversation that is a must have with students. And especially, I think them being able to recognize on their own, who is the monster? What are the monstrous acts? Of course, I would say, are monsters born or made? That's a question that I already have on my agenda. And it's so popular, whether you're doing Frankenstein or true crime or Julius Caesar. You don't have to do, right, one particular thread. There are so many different ways to get kids to have this conversation, and it's so worth it. So that's just 3 to get you started. Here's what I want you to take back to your team, to your principal, to your department chair, is this flow, this workflow. All right. So our old way, more or less, was pick a book, then pick the skills that fit that book, then force or fit a theme, right? The new way, the new workflow I want us to work in is to, number 1, identify the gap. What are students confused, angry, or passionate about? For example, right, money and happiness, right? Number 2, then we can draft that conversation. For me, it's an essential question. For you guys, I think that some of our teams are getting on board with this, but if not, we can just call it a conversation. It is an EQ, it is a question, but let's focus on this, right? So then we're going to draft how we're going to have that conversation. So 1, identify the gap. 2, draft the conversation. 3, then we're going to select the skills. So what skills do they need to argue this, to participate in this, to demonstrate this? What do we want them to do in this conversation? And then 4th is going to be to select the text that best aid that process. And so it's not about putting books last, but it is about prioritizing the conversation around the needs of our students. I guarantee you, most, if not all, the books you really want to teach will be inside these conversations because they're classics for a reason. If you're a classics addict, they're going to be there. But if we start with the book and not with the theme, the conversation, then it's going to be even harder for our kids to get there if we haven't at least started there ourselves. It's going to work. It's going to be amazing. And I really want to hear what this looks like for you and your school. So please feel free to send an email. Feel free to reach out via social media or our email. I'd love to talk to you about this more. And if you have another conversation that you think we should add to the list, let me know. And if you'd like me to take one of your ideas and flesh it out in another episode, send it over and I'll record a team meeting for you and for your team, and we'll all dig into it together. Thank you everyone so much for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful week at school, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in Happy Hour and the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here and have a